entire thing, gray thing that's in the middle of your myelin sheath, hopefully you all realize that's your axon, okay? So you've got your axon going down the middle of the myelin sheath. There are mitochondria inside it. And then, of course, this is your myelin sheath, okay? On the quiz in recent semesters, the question they ask about the myelin sheath is a little obscure, okay? Is a little obscure. So the one about the myelin sheath, ask me, because it's kind of, I don't know, it's very hard to tell whether they're wanting Schwann cell or whether they're wanting you to tell them myelin sheath, okay? So I will see what's on the key, and if you say, I'm confused, and I'll say either they want to know from here to here, which is a Schwann cell, okay, or they want to know what this creamy layer is, which would be myelin sheath. Okay, see, like here, this from here to here is a Schwann cell.
Oh, from the groove?
Yeah, from the groove, because that little groove is supposed to be a space. It's supposed to be that node of Ranvier that isn't real obvious on these models. Or they could be asking you just to name this creamy coating that coats this axon, and that is myelin sheath. Okay? So, don't confuse the axon terminals with the dendrites. Make sure you know axon hillock, that this is your axon here, going down through the middle of the myelin sheath, because myelin, only your axon is myelinated. And then you'll have a question, either Schwann cell or myelin sheath, and when you get to that question, raise your hand and ask, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Nissel bodies isn't usually asked, so I have that striked off.
Yeah, Nissel bodies usually
All right,
aren't asked.
what about neural fibrils?
Neurofibrils are these black lines off to one side, and they usually don't ask those.
Okay.
Okay? So, next we come to brain dissection. All right. What is the, it looks like when you peel a shrimp? Dura mater. There will be a pile of dura mater there. Okay? So, the arachnoid, remember, we can't see because it's just a thin webby layer. And the pia mater was that thin, clear coating that was shrink wrapping the brain. Okay? Then you will have to, they're going to have a pin in the olfactory bulbs. You're going to have to know that. Okay?
And those are at the front.
Those are way at the front. Okay? Then your optic chiasma. They will either have that on like a whole brain turned upside down and a pin at the bottom of the V, because here are your optic nerves. Right here where they cross at the bottom is your optic chiasma. So they'll either have a whole brain turned upside down and you'll see the V, and the pin will be in the V. Or when you cut that brain in half, what's in front of your pituitary gland? It would be the optic chiasma. Okay? So, one way or another, they're going to have that on there. Okay? Then, your pituitary gland. That's going to be on there.
This one?
It's the dark thing. No, see, here's the one model that we have. Oh, and I nearly broke it. Okay. The one model that has the pituitary gland hanging from the infundibulum.
It's like a jelly belly.
Kind of looks like a jelly belly. Remember on your brain dissections, it was the dark thing. And if you're having a question about, I don't know, what can you ask me?
Is it a jelly bean?
Is this the dark thing?
No. What did you learn when we learned bones? Where does it sit?
Oh, Sarsatellia or whatever.
Cella-tertia.
Yeah, there we go.
You could go, does this sit in the cella-tertia? And I would say, yeah. Okay? But you have to know enough to ask me that, to know that that's the little seat where the pituitary gland sits. Okay? Now, so you're going to get pituitary gland. On the dissection, you cannot see the infundibulum, and since this is the one and only brain in all of Midlands Tech that has the pituitary on the infundibulum, what do you think your chances of infundibulum are?
0.
Okay. Y'all are good. Okay. Mammillary bodies won't be on there.
Ooh, good.
Okay. Ventricles. Now, remember, your lateral ventricle, you have 2 of them on either side of the brain. Okay? They're the big ones at the top. The third one, you can't see anywhere but on here. Okay? So these 2 big guys, you guys can take pictures afterwards because I labeled it. These 2 big guys at the top are your lateral ventricles. This one in pink here is the third ventricle that you can't see. This thing running down the back is your cerebral aqueduct, and down at the bottom is the 4th ventricle.
Are they going to ask cerebral aqueduct and stuff on that model?
If you get this model, I would guess they probably do 3rd ventricle.
No.
Because that's the one you can't see. They can easily stick a pin in the dissected brains for lateral ventricle, 4th ventricle, and cerebral aqueduct.
On lateral ventricle, I have written down that they stick the pin. They'll stick the pin straight down in it.
If you're sitting there and it's the lateral ventricle and they've got it sideways, it's that septum pellucidum that's down here. It's the little membrane that covers the lateral ventricle.
Okay.
So if you have it kind of in sideways, think septum pellucidum, okay?
Okay.
All right? Now, when it comes to your cerebrum, they're not going to ask you about sulcuses and gyruses or your... I don't believe they ask longitudinal or transverse fissure. Now, when it comes to lobes, they will have a brain...
So no sulcus and no gyrus?
And the cerebrum is this big fat part at the front, right?
Yeah, the big fat part at the front is the cerebrum. And then remember when we dissected, I told you that they're going to have a brain that's sitting like this, a dissected brain. And they'll have a pin stuck here, which is your
cerebellum.
Cerebellum, okay? Then you have your lobes. And they're just like the lobes, you know, they're underneath the bones of your skull. So frontal, parietal, temporal, occipital. So, and pay attention, because a lot of people miss that because they don't read that it says, name the lobe. And they'll tell me, cerebrum. No, the question was, name the lobe. Okay? And it's easy to remember because your cerebellum is right back here. Your brainstem, I tell y'all, if you've got your spinal cord going down the front of you, somebody wants to study you, okay? Because your spinal cord goes down the back. So it's easy to tell that this is frontal. This would be occipital, parietal, temporal. Just like the bones in the skull, okay? So, you're going to get that. Now, corpus callosum. That's that thick white thing right here that goes over your lateral ventricle. That will be on the quiz, okay?
And we don't need to know the fornix?
No.
Don't need to know what you say?
The fornix. They've kind of dropped that out. You used to have to know
Yeah,
it.
where's that on the paper?
Under
Oh,
septum pellucidum.
It would be, like when the sheets I sent you out
Oh,
were from
okay.
a couple semesters ago. And see, they've actually tried to make this class easier. They've dropped some things out. Okay, so that's one. You don't have to know fornix now. Don't worry about the white matter, the cerebral cortex, the basal ganglia. Okay. Now we're going to get down here. Thalamus. Okay? They're definitely going to put a pin in the thalamus. Okay?
Can you point out where that is? Because I have written round circle.
It is a round circle. Let me see if I can get this to work.
Dang.
Oh. Let's see if we can get it to focus.
There we go. It's good.
Hey,
Oh, it's
wow.
doing it. Yay. Okay. So, I don't know if you can see number 19 here. I'm going to turn it like that. See how it's a circle? Okay. I'll let y'all take a picture of this when I'm done.
Point to it.
See
19.
the circle right here?
Okay.
All right. Now, the intermediate mass is in the middle of your thalamus. But what did I tell y'all when you dissect it? You can't see it on the dissection. So if the pin is in there, I have a million people, well, not a million, but, you know, going, it's got a spot in there or the whole thing. I'm like, did I not tell you and laugh? If the pin is in the thalamus, or the thalamus, they want thalamus. They don't want intermediate mass, okay? Then, hypothalamus is directly below it, and then they love pineal gland, or, okay, so let me see, this one has it. Let's try to focus it. It's the little green one here.
It's
And
22. Is that
It's
what you
the
have?
pineal gland, okay, which is considered part of the epithalamos, all right? Then, we have midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. Those three make up your brain stem, all right? So right above your pituitary is your midbrain. Okay? Right behind the pituitary is that bulge that comes out. That's your pons. And further down is the medulla oblongata. Okay? It's right under your cerebellum. Okay? And then cerebellum, arbor vitae. Okay? So that's why I said, if they ask you, gosh, don't touch it. Right here, that will be cerebellum, because when you flip it over to this side, they're going to be asking arbor vitae. Okay? And nobody give me tree of life, because that's wrong. Okay, I'm going to try and do this with my wrong hand. Okay. Alright? Now, cranial nerves. Names, Roman numerals, numbers, and functions.
Wait,
Okay.
can you get that back up there now? We
Which
can
one?
see where you're going.
Your
What?
slide thing on
Because there's still the dissections on the...
Oh, sorry. No, wrong one. There you go.
Boom.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Cranial nerves, names, Roman numerals, and functions, okay? The package you got has that chart, you know, and it tells you, you know, if you can remember, to touch and feel, very good, velvet, you should be able to remember olfactory, optic, oculomotor, trigeminal, you know, all the way down to the H in is hypoglossal, okay? And then it tells you olfactory is obviously a sensory nerve. Same thing with optic, sensory nerve. Oculomotor, guess what? It's a motor, okay? You get down a little further, some are both. They're a mixed nerve. They have a sensory function and a motor function. That is not going to be on this quiz, but I can nearly guarantee you it's going to be on your lecture exam. So you want to learn, you know, an acronym so you can remember those 12 cranial nerves. Then you want to learn that little acronym about beautiful blondes make more that was in the packet, so you can know sensory, motor, or both. Okay. On the dissection, they will ask you to do cranial nerve number 1 and number 2. So what's cranial nerve number 1?
Ear.
Olfactory. olfactory bulb. Okay? Cranial nerve number 2. Optic nerve.
So that's
Now
your
what I
optic
want you to
chiasma.
understand is there will be one on the quiz, one of those two, that's going to say, give the cranial nerve number.
Okay.
So don't just, if you feel the need to give me olfactory and a Roman numeral 1, that's fine. If you give me optic and a Roman numeral number 2, that's fine. But if you just write optic, I have to mark at least half off because that's not what they asked for. They asked for you to give the number of that nerve, okay? So make sure when you read that it says, what is the cranial nerve number? You give me the number, okay? Then, 8 and 10. That one's going to be one of those question things, okay? Where the question will be on a little pad and it'll say, this nerve is, involved in hearing or hearing and equilibrium.
Vestibular cochlear.
Vestibulocochlear, which is number 8, and you gotta write it out. You can't just write 8. Okay, you gotta give me vestibulocochlear. If it says, this one controls heartbeat, digestion, it's okay. Heartbeat, digestion, and it's the only cranial nerve that goes below the neck. It innervates, your kidneys, your spleen. That would be 10. Vagus, okay? So you put vagus, not an X, like X marks the spot, okay? So there's, they're going to ask you olfactory bulb. That's, number 1. They're going to ask you about optic chiasma. So you know that. That's on cranial nerve number 2. Number 2 is optic. But note, if they ask you the number on one of those, you put, olfactory bulb, Roman numeral 1, or optic nerve, Roman numeral 2, okay? Then 8 and 10 are going to be a question, okay? Then here are spinal cord model, okay? Remember what I told you about this spinal cord model, okay? You have dorsal roots and ventral roots.